Welcome to the 10th show in our series of Touring Texas Songwriters with our host, the long, tall Texan, Mr. Bruno Michel. Today's show features Texas veteran singer-songwriter and storyteller George Ensle and is brought to you by the Barrel Brewing Company and the citizens of historic Salado, Texas. George Ensle was recorded live in front of a studio audience for broadcast on Country Radio Switzerland. Sit back, relax, and listen to the life and song of George Ensle.
So, I mean, we're pretty fortunate here, and it's all you guys know that already, but we're scratching the surface of the original movement of Austin sound. You know, we have Bob Livingston, we just had Wheatfield, and now we have this guy here who is around since forever, I think. So for those who don't know him, I think you got your first guitar when you were 13 years old.
Yeah.
And with 29, you were one of the 6 winners of more than 100 contestants that got selected by the 6th Kerbal Folk Festival. And, I mean, that's already kind of an achievement in itself. Jury members back then were people like Townes Van Zandt, people like Steve Young, and it's a career of almost half a century without telling how old you are. It's just amazing.
It's a little over a half century.
One of the founders of the Texas music songwriter scene, I would say, these days. So I think the best idea is to start with a song. Everybody knows George Ensle. For those who don't, you will.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, let's see. I guess I'll start off with a song that I wrote for Townes. Back in the day, I actually got to play it for him. It's called The Troubadour. When his fingers ring with the silver strings, his spirit sings on golden wings, words to fly you from your world of care, words to tie you to people everywhere. He's a troubadour, lost in his song, about that road we're traveling on. May he find love between the lines, high above him, sweet sunshine. He's a city street, he's a country mile, lines cut deep around his smile. He's bars and stars, a boy and a man who goes too far for a one-night stand. He's a troubadour, lost in his song, about that road we're traveling on. May he find love between the lines, high above them, sweet sunshine. Ragged as the wind, pure as the snow, no place to stay, and everywhere to go. He leaves for no reason, home behind, and finds a way to make it right. The troubadour, lost in his song, about that road we're traveling on. May he find love between the lines, high above him, sweet sunshine.
said you wrote that for Towns? Or about Towns?
I wrote that for Towns,
For
yeah.
Towns. Did he record
and
it?
about Towns, of course.
Did he record it?
No, he never did record it. When I told him I wrote it, I said, I played it for him. I said, who do you think that song's about? And he said, you? No, it's about you, Towns. But that's the way Towns was.
All right.
Had a pretty dry sense of humor.
Now, some people actually say that you paint songs instead of writing them. Where do you see the difference?
Well, I guess I'm kind of focused on telling stories and painting pictures, of people and places. So the moniker of being a song painter kind of came about somebody reviewing me or something.
It's just a label they put on you, or
yeah, and the offspring from that was I came up with a concept to actually paint people's portraits with songs. So I created the Portrait Songs songwriting enterprise, where I write custom songs for people about their loved ones, like you would hire someone to paint a portrait of them.
Cool. So you would agree with that label? It's actually a good thing.
Yeah. I'm flattered to be called a song painter.
Now, many Texas artists have recorded your songs despite the fact that they're kind of esteemed songwriters by themselves. They took your songs on, and like Gary Pete, Bob Cheevers, there's Jeff Talmadge, and a lot of other guys. What does it mean for you to be recognized by your peers in a way like that?
Well, that's kind of the highest form of flattery, really, and honor, is to have one of your peers record one of your songs, or sing one of your songs. So that's about as good as it gets, in my opinion.
Do you do the same thing with songs of your peers?
I do sometimes, yeah. But when it comes to recording, I predominantly do songs that I co-write with my peers, and then original songs, and so it's a real honor to be able to write with some of these folks too, like Jeff Talmadge and Chuck Hawthorne, and different people, Greg Whitfield.
Cool. All right, I think we go into another one.
Well, let's see. I've got a brand new record. It's called Home, and I think this kind of segues pretty well into the last song. This was inspired by, and I wrote this with Tony Ramey, by the way, fabulous songwriter. It's called Black Sheep. They run into the sun and stand out in the rain, a glutton for punishment and a friend to pain. They stay a little too high, a little too long, and a little too lost most times to find their way back home. Black sheep, the prodigal, always on the run, living in the moment, dying to have fun. An old soul chasing rainbows, dancing their own dance. Black sheep always need a second chance. No, they're always calling in the middle of the night. They're always breaking down, thinking you can make it right. Their love is bittersweet, they're loyal to the end. They're their own worst enemy and your best friend. Black sheep, the prodigal, always on the run, while living in the moment, dying to have fun. An old soul chasing rainbows, dancing their own dance. Black sheep always need a second chance. When they get back on their feet, that's when they fall from grace. When they get it all planned out, that's when they lose their place. Sometimes they look a lot like the likes of you and me, taking all those wrong roads, trying to be free. Black sheep, the prodigal, always on the run, all living in the moment, dying to have fun. An old soul chasing rainbows, dancing their own dance. Black sheep always need a second chance. Don't those black sheep always need a second chance? Thank you. Thank you.
You mentioned that you created portrait songs, and it's actually a thing where people can come to you and ask for a song for like a wedding, a birthday, a loved one,
yeah,
whatever. Now, I was wondering, why the hell didn't anybody else get to that idea earlier? Because you seem to be the guy that really invented that thing.
I don't know. When I looked at folks that were out there already doing it, mostly it's just people that are writing like jingles for birthdays or something like that, but not really painting portraits. I have a questionnaire where people tell me in depth, about
the person.
Ever since they were born until, where they are right now. So it's, it's pretty involved as far as delving into their personality and what they want to emphasize about the people. Mm-hmm. They sort of help me write the song for the most part. And then I have melodies they choose from, so there's a template there.
Like templates, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know why. No one's done it before, but I enjoy it.
For a 20-year-old, that song is probably only 2 minutes and 15 seconds, while for an 80-year-old, you sing for 10 minutes. So how do you kind of cut that thing together?
They're all between 3 and 5 minutes. I want people to get their money's worth.
Pretty hard to cram a life in there, for a really old guy, right?
Well, I'm kind of creative that way. Yeah. I make the most of the questionnaire, but I haven't had any. Well, I did write one for a young man in hospice who was in his 20s through Swan Songs. Mm-hmm. I'm partnered with Swan Songs now, and I'm writing them for people in hospice. And he was only in his 20s, but he was very special, and he had a very special smile, and so I kind of cue off of that and emphasize that aspect, because that's what the person who
I think you're actually an active part of Swan Songs too, right?
Yes, I do the concerts
a lot
too.
There. Because we had Albert and Gage on about 2 months ago, and she talked about that project.
Yeah.
It's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger.
Wonderful. It's a wonderful
It's nice
foundation.
to see that all the musicians actually help out. They do a lot of good things there.
Well, music is healing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's our job, I feel like.
All right.
We're the healers of society.
One of my favorite songs is All I Need, a thing that you co-wrote with Richard. And Richard Dobson, by the way, for those who don't know him, he was an old friend of ours and obviously of George's. And he passed away a while ago, and pretty unexpectedly, actually, everybody has to say. And that song kind of it touched the soul of a lot of people, I think, the way it was written and the way you guys performed it. So for me, that's kind of a favorite. Do you guys have any, or do you have any other favorites of like songs that you wrote or co-wrote that you think are special to you? I mean, that
well,
is
Richard and
special to me.
Richard and I wrote a song about Bigfoot Wallace, who was a very colorful Texas Ranger, and he recorded that on this last project before he passed, and that was a real fun thing to do too. All I need is it's interesting because Richard was a Buddhist and I'm a Christian, and so as you can imagine, we had a certain amount of territory where we
kind of
crossed paths, and then there was other territory where we went
kind of
separate
diverted,
directions, and but it was kind of a miraculous feat because it highlights the similarities between the spiritualism of Eastern and Western, religion. So, want me to play it for you?
Absolutely, yeah, please.
I asked for strength and I got troubles to get me straight and strong. I asked for wisdom and I got problems that taught me right from wrong. I asked for courage and I got dangers to get me through my fears. I asked for answers and I got silence, taught me how to hear. I asked for love and I got strangers who needed a helping hand. I asked for mercy and I got an old friend who needed another chance. I asked for beauty and I got to see the world through the eyes of a child. I asked for understanding and got to see an old one smile. Got the world in a raindrop and the promise in a seed. I got all I wanted when I got all I need. And when I asked for years, I got moments instead. And when I asked for a feast, I got my daily bread. I asked for wealth, and I got work, and the hands to make my pay. I asked for truth, I got a lady, stands beside me all the way. Got the world in a raindrop and the promise in a seed. I got all I wanted when I got all I need. I got all I wanted when I got all I need. Thank you.
Kind of
Richard Dobson.
kind of sad. I could hear Don Ricardo in the back, kind of amazing. That
He's a beautiful man.
God rest his soul, I guess. Now, another cool tune that you have is it's a Texas thing. You're a proud Texan, so where do you see the difference between the kind of Texas music community and, let's say, the Nashville community these days? If there's
these
any
days?
difference.
Difference? I don't know. A lot of the Nashville songwriters that are moving to Texas, I know that
All
much.
right, that's true.
Because it's there's been such a big game changer with the way songwriting is happening in Nashville, that it's become very, instead of being this sort of thing where there's the artist and there's the songwriter, and then there's the record company and the A&R people, and the producers put the artists with the songwriters, and they wind up with a project. It's become very linear now, in these very cloistered, corporate establishments where the songwriter and the artist, and now the artist wants to be songwriter and the producer wants to be songwriter wants to be the producer, and they're all in the same room, the same company, the same corporate. That's the way I understand it. I never. Last time I went to Nashville, I took a cassette, and I was pitching songs, and I said to the publisher, I said, this was quite a few years ago. I said, now when it comes to demoing up songs and presenting them, what do you like as a publisher? What kind of media do you like? And he said, well, I like those cassettes that don't have the holes punched out in the back of them, so I can record over them.
Okay.
And that was about the last time I went pitching songs to Nashville. But I went there a couple of times and visited with Towns, and Towns kind of showed me around and pitched a few. But yeah, it's and when Sonny Throckmorton came to Texas from Nashville, he said, I saw an interview with him, and he said, Sonny, who wrote probably more number one hits than anybody,
a lot of them.
Still living, or than anybody ever, besides Hank Williams, maybe. He said, Texas songwriters, there's a story. Usually there's a story in their songs, and that's one of the things I really crave and really enjoy about writing songs, is telling a story. So I think we're more story oriented than the Nashville mentality, and I think they're typically more about emotion and relationships than character.
Some will call it marketing oriented. That
Marketing.
What sells.
Yeah.
What sells, and then you got all the studio musicians that are the same on all the records, and it starts to kind of sound pretty much alike. And that's why people like Randy Rogers, Waybone, they all came back. And, and they did a do-over practically here, and better be independent and play what you like and love than play what people tell you to do.
I've been real blessed to be able to do that and not have to. Not have to
probably
compromise.
made a lot of money up there by not these days, but. Because these days the song topics are totally different, like you mentioned. And
they have, and of course the songwriting there is, they put you in a room with someone you've never met before a lot of times, and they say, this is what I want you to write about, and you've got a quota that they want you to crank out a certain number of songs in a certain period of time, and none of that really fits in with my
called forced creativity.
My creative
it doesn't work.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have a set list, or do you want to play Texas thing? Or?
I'll play that one for you.
All right. Cool.
I think the folks over in Switzerland might enjoy it.
Absolutely. I recently had it on a radio show, actually.
How's that?
I recently had it on the regular radio show. I love it.
So it's a little chauvinistic look at Texas, I guess you'd say. We wave howdy to strangers, tip our hats and say yes ma'am. We try to be extra neighborly every chance we can. So I'll share the wealth and beauty that you may partake of the many wonderments here in the Lone Star State. Now when God blessed Texas, well, he gave us a clear blue sky. Clouds just made for daydreaming, slowly floating by. He lit our nights with stars big and bright, just made for wishing on. It's a state of mind that you can't find till you go to old San Antone, 'cause it's a Texas thing. I want y'all to know what it's like living in paradise and how we come by our bragging rights. It's a Texas thing. Well, it's as good as it gets. Do you ever wonder why you ain't a Texan yet? We got our own down-home cooking. We got your great steaks, chicken fried. Got a Tex-Mex plate that'll set you straight. Bluebell on the side. And we got our own brand of music made for holding your baby tight. And an old-time sawdust dance hall bathed in Luckenbach moonlight. It's a Texas thing. I want you all to know what it's like living in paradise and how we come by our bragging rights. It's a Texas thing. It's as good as it gets. Do you ever wonder why you ain't a Texan yet? It's a whole nother country. One thing I never did get clear. Why did we join the Union? We got all we need right here. Yodelay, 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 yodelay. Well, it's a Texas thing. I could go on and on about them painted sunsets on the Panhandle Plains, that sweet hill country rain, the wind in big thicket trees, Padre Island in the Gulf Coast breeze. It's new Lou Casey's and old straw hats, King Ranch pickups and old Cadillacs, a cowgirl on a cutting horse in a field of blue bonnets, and of course longhorns and jackalopes. Everything's bigger once you go. You'll know it's a Texas thing. And I'll be willing to bet, Bruno, you're gonna wonder why you ain't Texan yet.
That's
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Somewhere in that neighborhood.
That's probably the song we're going to play in the future if anybody asks why we moved down here. So that's a pretty straightforward answer, I guess. And it encompasses everything that is really.
Well, I thought we might need a national anthem.
That would be cool.
Just in case.
Nice. Well, the fun part is
we can secede.
Yeah. The fun part is that, about joining the union that you were singing, that it was never countersigned. So basically, we're still independent.
Still got the option on the table, yeah.
They didn't figure that out. Let's talk about songs like Uncle Jack or Billy Bob's Backyard.
Uncle Jack?
Or what is the ratio of songs that you write from, let's say, stories that you invent versus real stories that you actually have experienced?
Well, you never, as my buddy Hal Ketchum would say, you never let the truth get in the way of a good story. So, you just need to be true to the song. And and like Steinbeck said, just because it didn't necessarily happen doesn't necessarily mean it isn't true.
That's right. It could have happened there somewhere.
But yeah, I mean, I find inspiration, through just living, and keeping my antenna up for a good story and a good message, a good message.
Observation, obviously, and see what's going on around you.
And living, family, friends, and sometimes reach out for getting ideas from stories, but there's a lot of inspiration out there in everyday world, everyday life, everyday living. So Uncle Jack is a character. Billy Bob, actually, I used to live next door to Billy Bob, so that wasn't a big stretch.
That's actually a fun song too.
But let me play you a song about a story song that is on the new album.
Absolutely.
It's about something that happened to my brother in Syracuse, New York. Before I was born, my brother was 12 years older than I, so I never lived in Syracuse, but heard a lot of stories about what life was like up there. And one of the stories that was told by my dad and my brother was a story about an incident that happened when he was a little fella on his way to school. It gets real cold in Syracuse. That's one of the reasons my dad decided to relocate to a warmer climb. This story always fascinated me, and it has a pretty good message. Johnny was skipping school that frozen winter's morn. If he'd have played it straight, he'd be safe and warm in the little country schoolhouse. But the lesson learned that day would come from one he'd least expect would ever know the way. The bridge was all iced over and the railing was gone. Johnny slipped off and flew down into the frozen pond. The morning stillness shattered with a crashing sound. He broke through the ice and like a rock went sinking down. He kicked his way back to the top, started to shout, "Help! Somebody save me!" Trying to claw his way out, but the ice just broke away and his legs turned to stone. The freezing water soaked his clothes and froze him to the bone. Just then a passerby showed up on the bridge. He saw the situation and he thought of all the risks. Well, if I try to save him, I might drown myself. I wish this burden would fall on someone else. Then out from underneath the bridge came Jake, the town wino. He walked into the pond. As Johnny slipped below, he moved through the icy waters, reaching out his hand, snatching Johnny from the jaws of death, watched by the other man. Jake wrapped Johnny in his blanket and he carried him back home like a ragged old Boo Radley, stumbling but strong. The father met him at the door and he took his shivering child from a most unlikely savior with a toothless smile. The dad offered Jake his money for saving his son's life. He said, "No, thank you, sir. I just try to do what's right in the eyes of the Lord." And as they watched him walk away, "He's an angel with a broken wing," Johnny heard his father say. So Johnny learned mercy's lesson from the one they called the fool. And the passerby learned about living out the golden rule. Small town country barkeep learned a dad will pay to see. From now on, Jake the hero always drinks for free. Johnny was skipping school that frozen winter's morn. If he'd have played it straight, he'd be safe and warm in the little country schoolhouse. But the lesson learned that day would come from one he'd least expect would ever know the way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
That's a true story.
How have you ever any idea how many songs you've written?
Oh, Keeper's probably 250, something like that, maybe.
Now, how the hell do you manage to keep all those lyrics in your head? I mean, you probably get asked for a lot of songs that people know that you want to play, that they want you to play, and especially with long ballads. How the heck do you do that?
Oh well,
I will forget half of it, I guess.
It's just part of habit, It's just
Yeah, of course.
something you learn to do.
Practice and do it every day. But on the other hand, there is so many that it's. You ever
Well,
have the problem that
some of them are old
lyrics
songs
slipped,
that
or-
I still don't do.
Yeah.
I probably only do about maybe 100 songs. Or in my current catalog that I do, probably something like that.
Keep it all in
But
there.
yeah, I play often enough where you have to. It's just something you do. You just memorize them. I mean, because you perform them.
Mhm. What is easier in the songwriting process if you do it by yourself or if you have a pal, so in case you get stuck with a verse or with a melody, so he can help out, or what do you prefer?
No, well, it depends on the venue, but no one helps me out with the words. Typically, I have to remember the words. But
No, I'm not talking about playing. I'm talking about songwriting. When you write a song, do you prefer to write that by yourself or to have a buddy that can help you rearranging things
well,
or
I
having
wrote
new
by
ideas?
myself for probably about at least 40 years or so before I started co-writing. So it's a relatively new phenomenon, but I really enjoy it, and I've been blessed to pick, have enough folks that I can pick and choose, who I want to write with, and honored to have them agree to do it. So it's from before you even get started that they're going to be of like mind and heart and soul, before you. But if you were in Nashville, you wouldn't have a choice. They'd just sit you down with somebody.
Yeah, it's almost a
out of the
factory
blue.
thing. Yeah.
And so.
So you still do it by yourself too, I guess, right?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, yeah. I'm always writing.
Now you're kind of waking up at 3 a.m. It's then you got to be there and write, or do you just go back to sleep?
Sometimes. I mean, all I need was I kind of had an epiphany with that song, and that'll happen every once in a while, but usually it's work, and I even teach workshops on the crafting part of writing, because the inspiration is one thing and the idea, but you have to take what I call this big idea and you have to wind up with a
Funnel it down
3 or 4
somehow.
minute song down here, So, usually all this part in time and effort is spent trying to find just the right way to say what it is that you started off with, this big idea,
Well,
So.
Cool. All right. Okay, let's go back to the script, which is we play another song.
Play another song. Okay, I'll play. I recently finished shooting a part in the movie. The movie's called Buck Alamo, and it's about a local songwriter friend of mine who had he's gone through recovering from a lot of different kind of addictions and whatnot, and wound up being finding himself through the Lord. And his nephew is a Hollywood director, and he decided that he was going to write the script about his story and go ahead and shoot his own movie and write his own movie. So we just got through shooting it, and I get to play myself in the movie, which is really kind of strange, you know. But I said, "Are you sure?" And he said, "Yeah. I mean, you're Buck's friend." And the actual Buck turned out to be Sonny Carl Davis, who's old time Austin. He used to sing with the Uranium Savages back in the '70s, and he made this seminal movie called The Whole Shooting Match that apparently was the inspiration for Robert Redford to start the Sundance Independent Film Festival. It's quite a cool movie, but he's the one that wound up being the starring role. But the Texas Thing and All I Need are in the movie, and the Troubadour might be in the movie. We've recorded it. I don't know if it's going to wind up on the cutting room floor or not.
Is it like a full-length feature?
Yeah, it's a full-length movie.
Wow.
But this is another song that is going to be featured. I wrote this with Danny Brooks. Well, I've been doggone things that didn't work. Got the short end of the stick. I've had this old heart hurt, but nothing comes close to being caught up in the curse. Knee deep in a river and dying of thirst. Now you never get enough of the stuff that you don't need. Those who really have the most are asking for the least. I had myself a gold mine, but I never knew its worth. Knee deep in a river and dying of thirst. I was knee deep in a river, knee deep in a river, knee deep in a river and dying of thirst. Then in the middle of my darkness, oh, light came flooding in. That's when I discovered that river I was standing in would give me the best when I was down at my worst. Knee deep in a river, dying of thirst. I was knee deep in a river, knee deep So much for the heavy metal.
I think your first album came out in 1980, and it was the Head On album, I think.
Yeah.
How do you think your music has evolved since those? I mean, it's almost 40 years. So that's a hell of a long time.
Well, hopefully I'm writing better songs. You know, when you start out, you know, in your 20s, and I know all you other songwriters can probably identify with it, it's like you're doing something for the first time. You know, your experiences are about the first time, you know. So inspiration is just all over the place just from your life, you know. And then, you know, when you get into your 30s, you know, that's still going on. You get into your 40s and 50s, and, you know, you sort of have to start looking around for inspiration and, you know, looking at, you know, other places. And it's not just about doing something for the first time, you know, but it may be about a deepening relationship, or, you know, maybe about learning about things for the first time when you get older, but doing things for the first time is what. So my first record, Head On, it's mostly about adventures, you know, adventures. And we recorded it Head On at Willis Allen Ramsey's studio that he'd built in Austin. And we recorded it right straight to the analog tape, which went back to the guy that played, one of the guys that played on my first record was Stephen Doster, and he actually produced the new Home album 40 years later on his studio, which still has analog magnetic tape, and along with the digital technology, but it's state of the art. But he, you know, he still gets the warmth and everything and he has vintage microphones, and so. But yeah, I mean, it's hopefully as I'm matured, my writing has matured, and it's more universal, hopefully, in healing more people than I was when I first started. But
some people are actually saying if you record this analog thing, you get much more feeling, much more deepness into an album than with the digital thing. I have no idea because I don't understand that stuff, but that's what I keep hearing.
You've got a copy of Home, and you can listen to it, and maybe you'll tell the difference, you know, between that and, even though it is ultimately digital, but it started out, you know, being put onto that magnetic tape. So
when you write today, does it happen that you suddenly have, been there, done that, I can't do that again? Is it like, you know?
No. I mean, you know, life is just it's a journey, and you know, you do different things, see different things, and experience different things, and you know, hopefully, like I say, you know, there's a more universality to your work. You know, that more people can identify with it and be healed by it than the less mature work that you did. You know, which usually pretty egocentric. You know, there's a lot of eyes, a lot of eyes in my early stuff. You know, and even though I did have some stories on the first album, but yeah, that's just kind of what happens. You know, I think as you mature as a songwriter.
So it could actually happen that you write about the same topic that you used to write about, but with a totally different perspective.
I guess you could. Yeah. Seeing it from a different point of view. You know, from so many years later.
Turns out totally different at the end of the day. All right. You once said in an interview that you had to sit down on your first gig because your legs were shaking so much. I have no idea if that's true or not.
Yeah.
No more shaking these days, but what advice would you give a young guy that wants to start in this business today?
Well, don't think of it as a business, because music and business is an oxymoron in my book. I mean, if you're going to make music, then you're going to make music. You know, as far as the business end of things go, that's somebody else's bailiwick, you know, and if you start having that compromise your work, your artistic creation, if it's going to be tainted,
It's compromised.
compromised, yeah. Then, but I would just say, write what you feel, and I think you should sing every song like it's the last song
that you're ever seen.
you're ever going to sing. Because it might be.
Could be, yeah.
And especially at my age.
You never know. Go around the
But
corner.
seriously, it's
happens.
like, I did a show, and I won't mention any names, but I was doing some work and with someone, and they took it very lightly, when they were performing. And I thought, well, you're not really doing justice to the listeners, to the audience, when you don't have your heart and soul into it, And I thought, you really ought to sing every song like it matters. And I'll never forget someone describing Willie Nelson, and he played in his band, and he said, Willie sings to the guy in the very last row, the back of the room. Yeah. That's who he sings to, And I thought, yeah, that's the way it's supposed to
Probably
work.
right.
Yeah.
That's probably why he's still doing it, because exactly for that reason he wouldn't have to.
That's right. That's right.
Definitely. Yeah. All right. Well, let's play another one.
You want another song?
Sure.
Okay, I've got a list here of stuff I wanted to do. I do have a. I'll play you this song. This is one that's I just got covered by Charlie Roth. And I wrote with Chuck Halson. Dad gave me this pair of gloves when I moved out on my own. It was like a rite of passage the first time I put them on. He said, wear them for the greater good. And remember, son, always build God's kingdom. Don't forget where you come from. They're just like my second skin. Sometimes it's hard to see if I'm wearing them or if they're wearing me. I bear the scars for every time I threw that gauntlet down. Those gloves didn't know one any good, laying empty on the ground. But just before I turned away, I heard my father's words. I picked them up and put them on and got back to my work. They're just like my second skin. Sometimes it's hard to see if I'm wearing them or if they're wearing me. Well, through the years I mended fences every chance I had, and I rebuilt old foundations when they were going bad. I welded with the ties that bind blood, sweat, tears. It's like my dad's hands were in those gloves. God's kingdom's right here. So here's a window for the sunrise and a door to let my neighbor in. A round table for my family with no beginning and no end. With gloved hands I built these things, and now I do believe while I was making them, they were making me. My dad gave me this pair of gloves when I moved out on my own. It was like a rite of passage first time I put them on.
True story, I guess. well.
You know, John Steinbeck said.
All right. Well.
Yes, that's a true story.
What?
Mostly.
As the other guy said, if it's not true, it's well kind of invented.
It's well invented. That's a true story.
These days, as you talked about the music scene, that the business side of the music scene, and it's really questionable where are the young artists that actually are going to fill the shoes of the guys like Townes Van Zandt, Guy Clark, and all these people. And every now and then I hear somebody that I think, wow, that could be one of those guys, maybe in 10, 15, 20 years. Do you see these people somewhere?
Every once in a while, but it's kind of rare, and I'm not really plugged in that much to the young community, but actually I play annually. I played Townes Van Zandt's birthday party, and Butch Hancock hosted at the Cactus Cafe, and you get a pretty good overview of some of the young up-and-coming folks that are doing Townes' songs, and so I get exposed to them at that point, at that point in time, and there's a few that come out to my shows, but there's not, I'm not like mentoring anyone, and I don't know that anyone really is out there filling their shoes. The problem is the venues are not there. The singer-songwriter venues, they're really the stepchild, which is ironic because they're what put Austin on the map. But Austin's become the live music capital of the world, but it's also the free live band music capital of the world.
Almost.
And singer-songwriters don't sell booze. And so it's not a real marketable kind of venue to be operating, or at least no one's really delved in and committed themselves enough to really want to showcase great songwriters. If they did, they'd probably make a bundle of money. But it's so much easier to sell booze, and make money that way and hire bands. Sometimes the bands pay the clubs to play. Yeah. I mean, I've heard some pretty weird stories about Austin, but in general, I mean, we have to survive by playing songwriter series in churches that host songwriter series and house concerts, festivals, some clubs that will showcase, acoustic songwriters, but very few. There's very few. So as far as filling Guy and Townes' shoes, it's hard. It's hard to find a place for them to do that. The Old Quarter in Houston still really cares about acoustic music and about lyrics. And Anderson Fair, and I play there, and I play the Old Quarter, and Uncle Calvin's and the Open Door up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And there's the festivals like Woody Fest, Woody Guthrie's Festival, and the Kerrville Folk Festival.
Right.
And that's at Kerrville, they'll recognize the up-and-coming songwriters. But Guy and Townes, it's amazing what their reputation, how worldwide their reputation is, especially Townes, because Townes really was into underachievement his whole career. I mean, I always tell people that Townes made it in spite of himself, because he didn't really care at all about recognition or fame. I mean, he was solidly committed to his work and having a good time.
Kind of a similar level like Graham Parsons was almost.
I don't know. And Ramblin' Jack Elliott, he's the real deal from back in the day, and he's like the last of that era. He's in his 80s. Townes and Guy, they were born in their 40s, in the 40s, and they lived in Guy, of course, Townes only lived to be 52, but
no, he didn't
Guy lived to be 74. Yeah. But I don't know that there's that many young up and coming.
Bring the venues back that actually feature those people. That's going to be hard, because I think even on house concerts you have the fact that a lot of people in our age book songwriters for house concerts, or is it really also young people booking that? Or like if you get requests for a house concert?
I'm not. Oh, young people hosting house concerts?
Yeah, actually organizing
I don't
them.
know.
Right? I think it's
most
more
of
the
the ones
older guys, right?
Well, people, yeah,
Like us. I mean,
people who or
older.
people who get it.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, right. But that's what I'm
I'll
afraid
tell you
of.
something else. I'll tell you something else is Townsend Guy and like Ramblin' Jack. I mean, they were proficient performers and guitar players. And these kids that are around that are they're just banging on the guitar. I mean, that's a real kind of a two-dimensional performance to me. I mean, when you really want to have some depth to it, you know, you need to integrate what you're doing with especially if you're solo, where you need to have an accompanist that can, you know, bring it out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a pet peeve of mine, that a lot of time and work, effort went into Townsend Guy learning how to play their instrument as part of their performance, and that's what it takes.
Yeah, and also guys like you. Sometimes when I talk to these younger artists, I get the feeling that they see the success of the guys, you know, and they just want to get out and be famous and
overnight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The instant gratification.
That's all they care for.
Mindset. Yeah. Well, it
doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way.
No, never did.
You get out of it what you put into it.
Yeah.
So.
Some areas it probably works because you got a big marketing machinery behind you that actually doesn't care if you're still around tomorrow.
Yeah.
Quick buck.
Yeah.
Make some money and be done with it.
Yeah.
Pretty bad. Yep. So let's play another one, I guess, before I get to my last question.
All
I
right.
have no idea how
Let's
we're
see what
doing
I've got on my
time-wise.
list. Oh, I wanted to. I'll tell you. I think I'll
That'll be
try.
good.
I'll try this song. This song is one that's
Oh, you got a set list.
well, it's one that people identify with quite a bit. It's on my Small Town Sundown. That was a project where I tried to write a whole movie in song, and I had this concept, and because I look at every song as being a little movie, and so I thought, well, why don't you put a bunch of songs together and write a big movie, so make it into a big movie. So that's what I did. But this is a lullaby that I had written for my granddaughter that wound up in the movie and song. May you always show the way, live by the golden rule, and be kind to others who are not kind to you. May you live with no regrets and never miss a chance to tell someone you love them or ask someone to dance. May you grow up straight and strong like a cottonwood tree, shine like a wildflower for all the world to see. Feel the freedom of the wind and the warmth of a home. Have the laughter of a best friend, sacred time alone. Now your dreams are waiting. Say your prayers and close your eyes. May you one day see them all come true. And always know the world's a better place because of who and that the best part of me is you. wish upon the stars. May your eyes be filled with wonder from fireflies in a jar. May you hear the red-tail cry and hear the white-wings sing, and know there's a reason why we're blessed with all these things. May you always listen to your heart when it's time to make a choice. And when your plans all fall apart, hear his still small voice that says, keep believing, love will find a way, and that the darkest night will find the light of day. Now your dreams are waiting. Say your prayers and close your eyes. May you one day see them all come true, and always know the world's a better place because of who you are, and that the best part of me is you. Thank you.
That's the real stuff. Any questions from one of the 75 people out there? Go ahead.
Could you talk a little bit about that other guitar that you were playing? That's
The resonator?
What is it?
It's a resonator.
Oh, it sounds different looking than any of the other
It
guitars.
instead of having a sound hole, it has a resonator in it. This thing right here, which is the same thing inside of a dobro. But this being a metal guitar, sometimes it's called a national steel guitar. I think they're the folks that might have come up with the first one. It's made out of nickel.
Hawaiian style also. Remember they first played them like in Hawaii and stuff like that.
Is that right? Hawaii?
That's that little slide.
Uh-huh.
Going back to the 30s and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what I want to say. Probably goes back to the 20s or 30s. All right. Any others? Otherwise, I get to my usual last question.
Your last question?
Usual last question, which is, what question would you ask yourself in an interview that I did not?
What would I ask myself in an interview that you did not? Would you please play one more?
We do that anyway. We do that anyway. That was a good trick to get out of it. But
Probably I'd ask, what are you reading now?
all right.
And I'm reading, I just got through reading Horton Foote's wonderful childhood reminiscence of living in Wharton, Texas, growing up in Wharton, Texas back in the 30s and 40s. He was a great, he wrote the screenplay To Kill a Mockingbird, and he wrote Tender Mercies and Trip to Bountiful. Those are the ones that he's most known for, but he was a phenomenal writer. And I'll never forget an interview with Horton Foote, which kind of hit home as a story songwriter and a portrait songwriter. He said he was interviewed about how he wrote such great stories, and he said, what you have to do is make your characters real, and the story will write itself.
Whoa.
And that's the point we'll take. Have you ever seen Tender Mercies?
No way.
With Robert Duvall. It's a very low-budget film. It was made here in Texas, but it's a classic, and it won Academy Awards
Oh, wow. Yeah.
because of not just the acting, but because of the way it was written, and
Well,
the story, the characters.
well, that's what you're reading right now. All right.
I've just read Horton Foote, yeah, and I just and I'm reading a I'm reading a book called Grace-Based Parenting.
Okay.
My wife and I we're gappers. We're grandparents as parents. We're raising our granddaughters. So. And then I'm reading a book that was given to me. Eric Taylor gave me this book on Tully, who was a guy who was a writer back in Hollywood back in the days. But he started out as 14 years old, leaving a small town in Ohio and hopping the trains. He rode the freights for like 10 years and wound up in Hollywood, and he wound up being a real famous journalist for the Hollywood scene, and also wrote quite a few books.
Well, how do you get to read all that stuff? Where do you find the time besides writing, parenting, grandkids, but gigs?
I don't stop.
Just not
Ever ready fun.
All right.
But I would like to play one more song.
Yeah, that's why we want to go back to your first question. Why don't we play another song?
So the concept of the album, of the new album, is home. It starts out, of course, when you come of age and you pack everything that means anything to you in your old car and take off on your own. In every life, there comes a time to leave everything and nothing behind. You're too young to go, but you're too old to stay. So you're on your way to find your wings and the song that you were born to sing. But on your way, remember you always have a home to come back to. With every step, you learn to dance to the rhythm of life. If you just take the chance, keep the wind at your back now and the sun on your face, then you're on your way to find who you are, is both near and far. Hitch your wagon to a star. On your way, remember you always have a home to come back to. So pack your new dreams in your old car. Keep on believing, no matter where you are, you're where you belong, so seize the day. And be on your way to play your part. Seek the path that speaks to your heart. And on your way, remember you always have a home. Get your wheels a rolling.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was great. It was cool.
Thank you all.